Hi everyone, this is Professor Evolution 8. I want to talk about my Alolan Ninetales GX and Tapu Fini GX deck, what I use in it and how it works. Going to start off with the Pokemon. I use Drampa GX as my backup attacker, which is very handy for late game and sometimes the start of the game, especially for Big Wheel GX and Berserk. Righteous Edge can be useful for the discard special energy, which is quite useful because a lot of Pokemon use special energy, so that's quite nice. And then I use Tapu Koko for the free retreat when I want to Guzma or something and I don't have a float stone or anything on anyone, so that's quite handy. And then Flying Flip is also quite good for the 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. So that's quite nice. Then I use Espeon EX, which I got recently. Espeon EX for the Miraculous Shine skill, which you devolve each of your opponent's evolved Pokemon and put the highest stage evolution card into your opponent's hand. It costs 1 energy, which is colorless, so you can use it in any deck. This one is very helpful for Metagross, Gardevoir, and any other stage 2 decks. All you have to do is put some damage counters, like preferably about 60 or 80, depending on what their Pokemon are, for stage 1 and basic, and then you Miraculous Shine, and then they die. You only get 1 prize, but at least you get rid of them, which is quite nice. Then I use Tapu Lele. I managed to get my second one recently, so now I can play 2 Tapu Lele, which is awesome for Wonder Tag, where you can get your supporter card and everything. It's quite a cool card, and it should be the basic card you have in every set. And then I use 2 Alolan Vulpix. I use 3, but 2 seems to be fine for now. I use Alolan Ninetales GX for the Ice Blade attack, so I can snipe out Pokemon on the bench if I need to, like let's say Octillery or something else that people use for their backup attacks and to get cards. And then I use another one of those. I use Alolan Ninetales, which comes in handy sometimes for Pokemon GX and EX if you want to store or try and take out them. Unfortunately, this is susceptible to normal Pokemon, like Metagross's basic Pokemon, which does double damage, and other Pokemon too, like Gallade, so you have to watch out. Then I use Remoraid. I use one of this with my Octillery. I find that I seem to get both of them quite often, so I never seem to have problems finding them. And if I do, hopefully I get them from my prize cards quickly. Then I use Tapu Fini GX for the Aqua Ring, which is awesome if you need to get quick damage and a switch. And then Hydro Shot, you discard 2 water energy and does 120 damage to any of your Pokemon on your opponent's bench or active. So let's say a Rangaroo or something, you can take them out before they attack your Alolan Ninetales. So it's quite cool. And then you got Tapu Storm GX, which can remove a Pokemon from the active and shuffle it into their deck along with all the cards attached to it. That is situational. You have to use it wisely. Sometimes you use it and they can get the Pokemon back. This card is mostly useful for stage 2 Pokemon. I wouldn't advise using it on stage 1 or basic because they can usually get those ones very quickly back. And I use 4 Aqua Patches, so if they discard my water energy or I need to retreat, I can get them back quickly and power them onto my Tapu Fini GX or my Alolan Ninetales Vulpix, so it's quite nice. And then I use Field Blower ×2 to remove stadiums and tools in play. And then I use special charge ×2, so you can get your double colors energy and rainbow energy back, which you'll probably be discarding due to the second attack of a Alolan Ninetales GX. So you want to have 2 of these. And then I use Super Rod in case I need to discard Pokemon using Ultra Ball or something. Or they knock out my Alolan Ninetales, or something else I need back again, like Octillery. Then I use 2 Ultra Balls, which I seem to find is enough to get my Tapu Lele if I need it, or my Octillery. And I use 2 Acerolas, which seem to be more than enough, which puts one of your Pokemon that has any damage counters on it, and all the cards attached to it into your hand. This comes into play quite often, especially with my Alolan Ninetales GX, or my Alolan Ninetales. I can take them out of the active whenever I want to, so the opponent can't kill them quite easily. And then I use Bridget, 1 of, which I found is enough. I seem to have it most times. It never seems to be prized that often at all. And I use free Guzma. I used to use 2, but I found free is more consistent, especially when I need to switch out when people use Pokemon which stop me from attacking it or something, like a Alolan Ninetales. So this is always quite handy to switch out to a bench Pokemon to knock them out. Then I use 2 Lana. Each Pokemon which has a water energy attached gets healed for 50 damage. This is very useful, especially if you use water energy a lot, like in this deck. Use 5, so you'll have 1 at least on each Pokemon, so you can heal them quite easily. And then I use N. I used to pay like about 2 to 3 of them, but I found 4 is more consistent. I seem to get more draw support from 4 than I did with 2. Then I use Olympia, which is very handy if your opponent has paralyzed your Pokemon. If you want a quick switch without using a Guzma or anything, this is handy. And I use 2 Pokemon Center Lady, so I can heal 60 damage and remove paralyze, poison or sleep or anything which is on my Pokemon without having to retreat or anything. So this is quite handy. Then I use free Shauna as my draw support. Sometimes you want to use this instead of N because you don't want to affect your opponent's hand, especially if they have a bad hand. So this is a better alternative, especially with my deck too, where you want to keep your cards. Professor Sycamore, I find discarding him isn't helpful, especially if you don't have Trainer's Mail or Versus Seeker in Standard. Then I use free Wally, which is awesome, especially if you want to get a quick Alolan Ninetales out on turn 1 or Artillery. Sometimes the game calls for that, and having free gives you a higher chance of getting it in your hand. So that's quite awesome to have in this deck. Then I use free choice bands. I changed my Fighting Fury Belt to one of these. I found a choice band I seem to use more often than a Fighting Fury Belt with this deck. So I took out the Fighting Fury Belt and changed it for choice band. So now I've got 3 of these. Then I have 1 Float Stone, which I use on my Artillery most times. Then I use 4 double colors energy for my Pokemon, especially a Alolan Ninetales GX, which discards double colors energy because it counts as 2 energy. So that's quite helpful for the second attack. And for Drampa GX it also helps. And also Tapu Koko it works for. And a Alolan Ninetales. They all seem to use this quite often. And then I use 2 Rainbow Energy, which come in handy for Drampa GX Berserk, which needs 1 damage counter or more on a Pokemon for to do 150 damage, and with a choice band it does 180, which is a good counter to Darkrai. So it's quite helpful for that and other Pokemon. So it's quite nice to have. And I can also use this on my other Pokemon too. It also counts as a water energy when I want to use Lana. So it's quite handy for that too. Then I use 5 water energy, which I found is enough. With Aqua Patch, you get 9 energy because you can get 4 energy back from your discard pile. And then if you use Super Rod, you can get another 3 energy back if you want to. But I never seem to use Super Rod that often for that. So this is enough for my Pokemon. I don't seem to run out of energy at all. So that's pretty much my whole deck overview. I hope you enjoyed it.